Flung into a faraway land of magic, I found myself lost among a handcrafted environment full of creatures and whimsy in this brand new early access survival game, which seems to be a mix of Studio Ghibli with Pokemon as you use spells to cut down trees and familiars to do battle. But by the end of my adventure, while I cried at the ruins of my would-be mage's tower, I couldn't help but ask if I was the bad guy. Let's talk about... What's up, you beautiful beasts, and welcome to the video. Come with me on this adorable journey into a brand new early access survival game where you take control of a magical student and her menagerie of familiars as you deforest the realm, murder the locals, and use their very essence to power your spells. Witchspire is the debut game from Envar Studios, where we get to pick up our brooms and channel our wands to build a cozy little home for ourselves in this brightly coloured land full of exploration, adorable critters, and hidden dangers. By the end of my time with it, I want to fly on a broom, build a mage's tower like any self-respecting mage should have, and see just what this game has in store for everyone wanting to pick it up right now. Speaking of hidden dangers, expect light plot spoilers for Witchspire from here on out. If you want to avoid them and skip the meat of the video, check the chapters for my final thoughts. My adventure began by making my witch from a few basic options, and I was surprised to find, lurking among the voices, was Matt motherfucking Mercer.
Another day, another adventure.
Dude is everywhere, I swear to God. Not that that's a bad thing. Anyway, I picked my way through the few customization options before settling on my Little Witch Academia Extra, and I was thrown into the tutorial. Everything was straightforward and quick to pick up, with simple combat and a fun movement system. Pretty standard affair until, out of nowhere, I was asked to pick my starter poke, Familiar. Atop 4 pedestals sat 4 creatures, each with a different style and element. All that was missing was a strange old man named after a tree who totally is not my real dad for this to seem oddly familiar. I picked the cutest little owl dragon thing and went on my whimsical way before being sucked into a portal and starting the game proper. Arriving in the strange land, I got my bearings, found a little lore snippet left behind by other witches who travelled here before immediately throwing myself off a cliff, as is tradition. Soon I found my bearings and the usual survival game loops began. Cut down all the trees, mine all the rocks, slaughter all the locals, build a campsite and repeat. Except it was a refreshing change to playing a survival game that felt bright and sunny. Everything feels colourful and fun rather than death and desolation. Even as I went on my murderous rampage, I did it with a smile on my face and a skip in my step, even managing to recruit a small burb to join my army. My power was growing. The only thing that seemed a bit weird was that I found a potion in a chest that instantly boosted me to level 5. But considering the step between 1 and 5 felt more like a step stool than a ladder, it wasn't that big a deal. It did give me a head start on unlocking some things within the tech tree, which allowed me to begin building my first home. As is usual, the first building blocks you get are a rustic little cabin, but even this felt uniquely ornate rather than a shed in the middle of the woods like most other survival games, and I am fucking sick of building a little cube made of wood in the middle of some arse-backwards forest. Also, when you go into building mode, you do this astral projection of yourself, making the whole base building mechanic feel so fittingly magical. The only issue is that the tile size felt odd. I had to really mix and match to get a naturally sized house, but I thought maybe this is just intentionally jank because it's the first bit of building, but oh, was I wrong. Additionally, and this is probably just a gripe only for me and my pedantic ways of base building, but why is there no grid system for furniture? I had to eyeball the shit out of everything and it took me far too long. Either way, with some jiggery pokery, I eventually ended up with something actually satisfying, which is always a bonus, especially when it comes to making your first base. Before I forget, Witchspire does this one thing in survival games that I love. It uses the materials in your storage to craft things not just from your inventory. This is amazing. All survival games need to do this. With my home away from home set up, it's time to look further beyond my little perch and continue with the main quest. Heading into a nearby crater in search of my friends, I stumbled on a whole new host of creatures who I quickly genocided. You may be noticing a pattern here, and I swear to God, it's not my fault. Not only do you need to defeat these creatures to level yourself and your familiars up, but killing them also gives you loot and a chance to capture them. And then, once you've captured them, you can put them to work at your base. Remember team, we are here for magical whimsy. Magical whimsy. After decimating the locals, it turns out my friends weren't here after all. They'd instead headed to some Froblin caves, so I guess that's where we're heading next. Before that, I took the time to put together a forge at my home and put our latest familiar to work in said forge, although I'm not really wanting to question how his ass is making my forge work harder. Eventually, we arrived at the Froblin caves and wrought destruction among their ranks while stealing all their belongings, only to find my friends weren't here either, apparently having run off to some portal nearby. But it wasn't a complete waste of time, because we did find this adorable little vendor. Unfortunately though, I have no money, much to the upset of both my vendor and my familiars, who thought they were getting paid for all the heavy lifting. Continuing to explore the area, we ran into this neat little puzzle. There are 3 pillars, each of which has a symbol on it that correlates to a certain type of magic. Hit the pillar with that magic and it sets a light. Light all 3, reward. What an awesome little way of rewarding playing with different familiars and giving players a reason to explore beyond just introducing yourself to the locals with a fireball. Onwards, our journey continued until we finally came across the portal our friends had mentioned and the first boss fight. The Elunian Golem is the first fight with a decent difficulty spike, where I had to dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge, and even though I crushed it the first time because I'm a fucking Chad, it was a challenging little battle, which I imagined would be even more fun with friends. In fact, that was one thing I was beginning to notice. Witchspire was beginning to feel a little lonely. To no one's surprise, my friends weren't here either, but the next quest did catch my eye. Unlock and craft a broom. Except I couldn't because my hearth wasn't high enough level, so time to fix that by returning home. There was one thing I did notice as I arrived back at my little cottage. I don't think the trees around my home regrow, as the little peak looks barren as hell now, which is a bit of a shame. Regardless, it was time to set up my witchcraft circle for another tier of crafting and begin working on candles and scrolls, all of which needed more materials, so time for another explore. This time, I bumped into a weird glowing ball which I immediately touched, because if D&D has taught me anything about adventures, it's touch everything. This is awful life advice. And there was also another fun little puzzle which I expertly solved, all in a day's witching. Eventually, our hearth was level 4, although I don't think it visually changes, which is a bit of a kick in the shins. I had finally unlocked brooms, and now it was time to find the materials. But first, look at this adorable little bastard. I wish I looked that happy to go to work. To make my broom, I needed fine wood from large oak trees like the one that stands directly beside my base. But you know what? I'm an absolute whore for aesthetics, and since trees don't seem to respawn, I'm not ruining my little vista any more than I already have with my rampant deforestation. So off I go back across the map to find the trees. Luckily, I remembered where some were. I've got to admit, during this jaunt back to where I'd come from, I couldn't help but feel the magical world had started to feel a little bit less magical. All I'd really done so far was quite literally massacre adorable critters, and I'd really cast very little magic besides attacking with my weapon. I thought this was just because I was in the starting area and things would change as I advanced, but the scale of things had started to feel a bit lackluster. It didn't take long before I'd gotten my hands on some fine wood and made it back to my base. My broom was made, and it was time to fly. Fuck. My broom was made, I had it equipped, and it was time to fly. Now this was fun. This felt magical. The broom was great fun to ride and an immediate improvement as I zoomed towards my next objective, the Witchspire itself. This entire time, a disembodied voice had been leading me around, culminating in this: finding the keys to open the Witchspire. I already had one from the boss that I'd killed earlier, so I slotted it in and... Was that it? Okay, I guess I'll find more. According to the voice in my head, we were running out of time, so I best get a shuffle on, said no gamer ever. Before I left the spire, I abducted one of the locals, this fantastic looking squirrel thing, and added them to my growing army and went on my way. I also took the time to find a charling, who I immediately put to work in the kitchen. At the risk of repeating myself, the design of all the familiars in this game is just immaculate. Witchspire is going to cause a certain demographic to make some incredibly odd noises as they discover them all. I, however, have to admit though, I expected bigger creatures, more dangerous creatures, and just something a bit more magical about these lands, but maybe this is just me. I did manage to upgrade some of my equipment, going from my old school uniform to these new robes. Not quite as stylish, but sometimes you gotta sacrifice looks for some bigger numbers. My old school MMO players know this pain very well. Time to head to the new island where the next Witchspire key lies in wait, as well as all sorts of new things to explore. On my way there, I wondered if I could rename my familiars, and holy shit, yes you can. Oh, this is a dangerous new discovery. Onwards we flew to the new land of adventure until... Wait, what the fuck? Yeah, so my broom no longer flies in these new lands. I assume this is a way to make the world feel bigger and so it doesn't trivialize the time taken to create the world, but I only just got this ability and it's the first time in a hot minute that I felt magical, and now, well, it's gone. It seems like the golden orb that I touched earlier unlocks flight for the area, so to be able to restore it, I need to touch another magical glowing sphere, which means beating the bollocks off this little gerbil thing sat in front of it. Except, he's 9 levels above me, and when I tried, he rocked my shit like I'd stepped in the ring with Tyson. In fact, the only things that don't seem to kick the shit out of me in this area are these tiny little hedgehogs that are quite literally melting my heart. So... after culling yet another population, I found myself growing tired of the grind and decided to spend some of my luminaries on new base building pieces. Now before I get shit for not being into the grind, I love grinding in survival games. That's how you build the big fabulous bases, by grinding resources, and I don't mind grinding enemies so that I'm higher level, but a lot of the time you just end up putting points into some arbitrary number goes up rather than getting cool magical abilities, so I found that the payoff just wasn't worth it. Anyway, it was time to upgrade my base, as I now have access to stone. I can finally reach my goal of building a mage's tower. And they even have circular pieces. Base building, by the way, is one of my most valued mechanics in survival games. If the base building sucks, I lose interest faster than a lead balloon. Looking at you, Daisy. So it was time to get down to business and test out the new base pieces. I laid some simple floor foundation pieces and they all looked pretty good. I adored the curved corners. Then I noticed there are floor pieces, but they're not curved. Neither are the wall pieces. Wait a second. The stair piece aligns with the foundation and a floor on top, but not just the foundation on its own. So hold on. To use this building set, I need to place foundation pieces apart from the curved corners because there's no floor. I then need to use the floor pieces so that other bits align with the floor properly. Hold up. This is the same issue I had earlier with the walls where nothing quite fits right. Call me petty, but this kind of broke the game for me. I can't use my broom in the next area until I unlock a certain thing from grinding. The base building pieces don't fit together properly and kind of just frustrate me, and I don't actually feel that magical in a world full of magic. My entire adventure so far has boiled down to a subpar Pokemon while I absolutely destroy a good section of local fauna and flora. Am I supposed to be the bad guy? I feel like I'm the bad guy. I was having a great time at first. The world is colourful and full of whimsy, but I just don't feel like a witch in a game about witches. I don't feel all that magical as the familiar is doing just about everything for me, and even that boils down to just allocating numbers after an early point. I don't interact with them besides telling them when to kill and how. While I loved my little cottage and its aesthetic, building a base felt kinda limited besides some really fun placeables. I was either making a square or a rectangle and it was just a more charming shed in the woods. I think at this point I've had enough for now. My journey through Witchspire was fun. I think if you were playing it with friends and were really enchanted by the world, there's definitely something here for you to get lost in, but I found myself losing interest after around 5 hours. All the upgrades felt like dull, incremental percentage changes. My spells never felt particularly spell-tacular, and my familiars just felt like weapons rather than supporting creatures. Not to mention, I had the ability to fly for 10 minutes before it was taken away. To reiterate, I had fun for the short period that I played, but I think the rose-tinted glasses fell off pretty quickly. Some people, though, are gonna love this. I just think I'm gonna wait for a few more ingredients to be added. I do have to say, it is an amazing first swing by Envar, and I'm actually genuinely looking forward to seeing what they add to it. They have released a roadmap as I started recording this video. But at the end of the day, who cares what I think? Have you played Witchspire? What did you think? Am I full of shit? Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the game, and if you've made it to the end of the video, put Hocus Pocus down there as well. If you've enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and it means you won't miss a future upload. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.